Hello everybody. Thanks for joining me. I have a PRS Silver Sky. I was so excited to get one of these in, give it a try, see what it sounds like, see what it feels like. It has a 7 1/4 fingerboard radius, which is really vintage feel, and it also has quite of a vintage sound to it. This one got smashed. You'll see it here on the horn on the treble side. It just came back from New York City to Nashville on a flight. I don't know which airline it was. We'll just say it was American Airline. Anyways, it got squished, and I got a call from a fella. Actually, he sent me a text. He sent a picture. I just figured it was a PRS standard type of, polyester finish. Turns out it's a John Mayer signature, and it has a thin lacquer finish. Here's a guitar player playing on the Tonight Show. This is right before the guitar got smashed. His name's Nick Schmuddy, and the band is with the Walker Hayes Band. And in late October, they had a #1 hit and got to tour all around and play on the Tonight Show. Was one of many shows that they got to do. And then after I fixed the guitar and he got it back, they did several appearances. One of them on The Voice right here was the season finale of The Voice. I think that was in December. And this doesn't show a real close-up of the guitar, but you'll see it when I'm finished with it here. I started off the project, like I said, thinking it was a polyester finish, and I was just going to do some super glue repairs, but it turns out that I had to change my course of action after I figured out that it was a thin lacquer finish. So let's take a look. On a paper towel, give it a quick wipe, and I think I'll run some paste wax over the brown tape, because if I drip some super glue, that way it won't stick the tape on there permanently. And I'll be using a toothpick for that. I mean, not a toothpick. Duh. I'll be using a Q-tip. Got a little paste wax on there. I'm just going to get right to the edge of the tape. That way, if I spill, he won't have tape on his guitar for life. Next thing I'm going to do is grab me some thick super glue. And the stuff I like to use is called Loctite, and it's an ultra gel control. It looks like this. And it's controlled because you can control it coming out with these two little squeezy things on the side. So I just want a little to come out right there. Right there on that, where it's really dented in. And I'll let that dry, and I'll come back in a minute. Now I can also get in there with some really fine magnification at this point, and maybe like a little X-Acto blade. I've got a really gunked up X-Acto blade. It has like paper towel stuck to the end of it and stuff, because I push super glue around on occasion. There's another job I'm doing right now where it had this real thick polyester Fender 1974 kind of CBS Fender era. Well, it's been an hour and the gel super glue is really hard and set up here. So I'm going to take 320 grit sandpaper. I only put it right here on this area, right? Okay. So now I've got there's a little ledge right here. It's like a cracked egg shell. It looks like eggshell is exactly what it looks like. I'm going to take the sanding dust off of that with naphtha. I'm going to drop in Loctite liquid, which is medium viscosity super glue. My little trick for dropping in super glue is to drop it onto razor blade or X-Acto blade. What I did right there, you probably should never do, is drag a super glue across the guitar top. I'm gonna put it onto a second X-Acto blade and kind of help it shellac, denatured, no pigment. I like to mix the pigment in with the denatured alcohol first and then transfer that mix into the shellac. It just helps mix the color without getting any kind of separation going on. The Silver Sky paint, gosh, I can't remember the name of the color. It wasn't a bright white, it was more of a cooler white, which I figured I could get by adding just a little bit of this black ink, and it was a pretty good match. Not great. It would pass, you know, at a distance from a couple feet away, but when you got real close, it didn't look great. It's going to look great, though, when we're done with the aerosol. I'm just kind of dabbing in or dropping in shellac over the bare wood. This wasn't a complete waste of time anyways. It was only a couple minutes of work, and it ended up being a pretty good primer coat for what was to become a spray paint job. With shellac, you can drop it in, you can wait 15-20 minutes, and then come back and put a second coat. It takes 3 or 4 coats before it becomes less transparent, more opaque, hiding the defects. The guitar had a real contour coming in from 3 different angles here. I had to do a little sculpting before applying this drop-in finish. Third coat, I'm starting to slop it all over the place. Being a little less careful here on the third coat. Just a little dab. Dab of white. A dab of white is all right. Man, these guitars really have a cool vintage tone. When John Mayer first came out, I guess I didn't appreciate him as much as I do now. When I started hearing him play with the Grateful Dead, or what he called Dead and Company, I was like, wow. Maybe because I wasn't the biggest Jerry Garcia fan, his voice didn't really do much for me. But John is just a really good compliment to the Dead and Company group. He must have been a real big Dead head, or a big fan himself. This is what I call shellacker. It's 3 parts shellac, 1 part lacquer. It brushes on without too many brush strokes. It's kind of self-leveling. If you brush on just plain lacquer, it can get a bit bumpy. It doesn't dry very fast. But when you mix it with shellac and it becomes shellacker, it dries extra fast with less bumps. Interesting things came up. That tape, that binding tape that I had wrapped around here, left this yellow color on the lacquer. I didn't even think it was lacquer, the way it was all cracked. And then the other interesting thing is that Paul Reed Smith sent this paint, which is an exact match. I'm going to drop it in here. How Paul Reed Smith ended up sending this paint out to the customer, I don't know. But it's a weird smelling lacquer. Huh. Alcohol. Isopropyl. Weird stuff, man. Here's my 10-gallon air compressor. Next to it's the CO2 tank with a regulator. That's what I use on small jobs like this to power my airbrush. I can really dial it in. On the other side of my tool chest is the StewMac guitar buffer. I didn't use it on this job. I just went with hand polishing because I just only sprayed 2 coats of the aerosol clear on top of my color. There's the guitar again on the Tonight Show. My setup in the garage for spraying is pretty modest. It is a box fan in a window with the window on the other side open. I pull out one of the cars and I hang the guitar from a chain right in front of the fan. And when I'm done, I clean everything up, pull the car back in, and it's just basically a functional garage. But I don't take on full-blown electric guitar refinish jobs. A lot of people call me from all over the place. I guess they just Google guitar refinishing and I pop up. Unfortunately, I refer them off to other people for that. But it's just kind of dangerous. You know, I've heard some things about, explosions maybe happening. But the health risks, I do wear a respirator, but still a little bit gets around the edges of the respirator and I can still smell that stuff. If you breathe in enough nitro in a day, you'll experience headaches and, it could have long-term health problems. Cancer, I don't even know. I don't want to speculate, but I know I don't like breathing the stuff, and I wish I could just use shellac only. But once in a while I get a vintage Martin, vintage Gibson, and I use nitro. This is just an aerosol can of the Watco. That's after 2 coats. It almost looked like nothing ever happened after 2 coats, so everybody was really happy with this job. I'm going to put the pick guard back on there, throw the neck back on the strings, and let's jam out.